Okay, we're going to be putting together the micro cushat by NitroPlanes. Okay, as we take the lid off the box, we have a manual. I guess it's a directions. Some stickers. More stickers. Looks like we have the ESC, some servos, and a battery. And some other miscellaneous parts, probably for the wings, and looks like there's a propeller in there and a piece of heat shrink, probably for the push rods. I'm gonna guess that that is some glue that I'm gonna throw away. Comes with a really flimsy little rudder and the same flimsy type stabilizer. Horizontal stabilizer. Wings are a little bit better foam material, and I believe in this build I'm actually going to not use the rudder and try to actually use ailerons depending on the strength of this wing. I'll get to that later on and let everybody know what I'm going to do. Here is the fuselage. It looks like it's rubber banded together with a little motor on there, and the carbon fiber boom. I believe that's carbon fiber. I could be wrong. And these are probably the push rods and the canopy. Okay. This thing says it's an ARF, but from the looks of things, it looks like the only thing that's pre-installed is this motor. Servos are not installed, obviously, they're in the bag. This thing comes apart, and it looks like all the guts go inside of there. So, ARF, I don't think so, but nonetheless, if you have some plane building experience, this actually shouldn't be too hard to do. Okay, so I decided not to do the aileron mod, just because this is a little cheap $40 plane and it's not even worth my time to put them on. And the extra hardware to put these on, make the ailerons work, would probably weigh the plane down even more than it already is. So anyways, I mixed up some epoxy over here. We're going to put this little wing brace. There's double-sided sticky tape inside these little grooves. You're supposed to pull out and this thing sticks to it. I'm going to go ahead and do that, but then I'm going to just put just a little bit of epoxy on there for a little bit added support. And then we'll work on the tail section right after I get this wing put together. Okay, the wing is done. I stuck that little plastic piece in there with the double-sided sticky tape it came with, and I smeared a little bit of epoxy near the outside edges, because the actual wing attaches to the fuselage about here, and there's some pretty thick double-sided tape in there. So that should be fine with the wing. There's not a whole lot of stress going on there, so that should be just fine, that little bit of epoxy I put on there. Next we're going to look for the vertical and horizontal stabilizers. The rudder and elevator are already put on there. It comes with two of these little things. I have one on here. There's a long one and a short one. The short one goes towards the front, the long one goes towards the back. I don't know if you can see it, but there's slits on the bottom and one little hole in the middle that this top thing goes through. And I'm just going to assume that the rudder is going to attach to these top pieces. So let me stick these bottom pieces on, and then the rudder will attach to those things sticking up right like that. Throw a little epoxy in there, and let's see what it looks like. Okay, here's the assembled tail feathers. Everything went together pretty smooth. The only thing I had to do was, I don't know if you can see that, but there's a piece of tape that they use for the hinge right here. And where that thing came up through the stabilizer, you just got to take an X-Acto and just kind of cut a little hole in this tape so that thing can come through this little whatever it is, can come through the bottom, through that tape, and then put your vertical stabilizer on. There was 2 slits in this vertical stabilizer for those 2 things that came through. It wasn't quite cut all the way through, so I took the hobby knife again and I just cut it all the way through, and just kind of slid it on from the top and smeared a little epoxy on those plastic joiners, as well as putting some epoxy here on the corners where the vertical stabilizer meets the horizontal stabilizer, just for a little added support. I'm guessing CA would be okay to do this. I'm an epoxy guy. I didn't put too much on there because it is a little heavy, but I did put some on there. So wings are finished, tail section's finished, and we're going to start working on this fuselage. Fuselage is one of those kinds you got to sandwich together. I'm not a big fan of those because the wires never seem to be in the right spot when I sandwich them together. But, you know, what do you expect? So the motor's already installed. It's installed with this plastic motor mount, I guess. And of course I'm going to put a little bit more glue in there because it seems to be just a little loose. The battery it comes with, I believe this is a 2-cell, just a little cheapo battery. I had a bunch of these laying around. This is a 3-cell. I weighed it on my little scale, and this is less than half of what that weighs. Besides, I don't know if this speed control, where the heck did it go? I don't know if the speed control can handle this battery. So we're just going to go ahead and use this one, and I'm sure I can get probably 10 of these on eBay for like $5. So we'll just go ahead and use a stock battery, stick it in here. There's no real directions on where to put everything. There's a picture up here, but it's kind of messy, and I don't like a messy install. So I'm gonna analyze this for a minute and try to lay these pieces in here and see if I can get the cleanest layout. It looks like these servos are going to be probably the weirdest to mount. There's no way to mount any of these electronics. It just kind of lays in there, but obviously you got to secure the servos somehow in there and then sandwich it together, and hopefully it all goes together right. I'm guessing I'm just going to attach the servos together, you know, like that or something first, maybe this way, so they don't bang into each other. So I'll probably sandwich these together permanently, find a place in here to mount them, and attach one end or the other to the fuselage, and put a little double-sided sticky tape or some epoxy to secure them, so when they move the push rods back and forth, these things don't actually wiggle, because that would be bad. So I'll do that right now, and I'll be back with my conclusion on the way I'm going to mount all the guts. Okay, so I looked at this thing front, back, and all around, and I came up with something that was actually might be a good idea. So in this particular model, when you're building it, all these guts, the servos, your receiver, speed control, everything gets stuck in this little cavity, and the battery, I guess, shoves in from the bottom here, but everything else is impossible to get to because you're supposed to glue it together. So what if you need to adjust your servos, or if you need to replace a servo, or you want to maybe use that receiver in a different plane and you don't want to tear this apart like it's a penny bank? Well, what I came up with, I mean, you're still going to have to tear it apart if you want all this stuff out, but to make things easier, especially to get your linkages correct and your throws correct, instead of guessing in here and then permanently sandwiching them together forever and ever, I'm actually just going to cut out a hole right here for a servo to stick out here, as well as the other side, so I can adjust the control arms or whatever I need to do to the servos. And it should free up a little bit of room in there, and it'll take out 100% of the guesswork because the servos will be accessible. The only thing I'm going to have to modify is this boom. It comes from the factory. Not sure if you can see that, but there's a little slit cut out right here for the what that slit was for, so that the control rod would come out of the slit and hook up to the rudder. So we're going to keep that the way it is, and I'm going to take my Dremel and do a slit on the top side and a slit on the bottom side on the opposite end of the tail boom, so then when it's plugged in to the back of the fuselage, the control arm, the push rods from the servo arms will go out and into that slit all the way down. The elevator will just come directly out of the back of this tube, and then the rudder already has its own slit from the factory. Well, that'll come out and hook up to the rudder. So a small modification with my Dremel should take, I don't know, 4 or 5 seconds. Cut out 2 holes on each side for the servos. With I'm just going to use a X-Acto blade, and that's it. And it should look pretty clean, actually. It shouldn't look all chopped up, because I like my installs nice and clean. So I'll get to work on that and update everybody on how that's turning out. Okay, so I got the servos installed. They don't look too bad. They come out of the side and held in with some glue. So I got one on each side, and then this boom will be attached inside there, each hooking up to its own servo. Obviously, I did cut the little grooves right here and right here. That's what I did, so I can put the push rods through the boom, and it exits the original factory hole in the back, and then in the very end of the boom would be the elevator. The tool you could use for this is a Dremel. You can use the cutting tool, and what I used is this tool right here. It's like a little buzzsaw kind of tool. Seems to be the right thickness, and just very carefully do it. Make sure you get your eye protection. I'll go ahead and install the speed control and receiver, plug them all in on one half. It'll probably be the half with the motor. So all the electronics will be installed in here and secured, as well as the boom. And then the very last part will be, I'll take this half and glue these things together, and then of course the wing will be last. We'll put it all together and see if it works. Okay guys, I kind of made a mistake. It wasn't a big mistake. The hole in the back that the push rod comes out of should be facing towards the sky, so that the push rod can go over the stabilizer to the rudder. Well, I thought it was supposed to be leaning to the side, which it wouldn't have worked at all. It would have went under the stabilizer and not been able to attach to the rudder. So in turn makes these things exactly on top of each other, up and down, instead of going off to the left and right. So instead of cutting 2 more holes on the side, I'm just going to twist it and cut one hole on 90 degrees to this boom and just twist it from there. So we're only going to make 1 more cut instead of 2, because we don't want to give up the strength of this boom by cutting out a whole bunch of holes that are really close together. So I'll just take it all apart and do 1 hole 90 degrees to this hole right here, and everything should be fine. Okay, here's the final product for the tail section. All I did was just put a Dremel that extra hole on top so that the push rod comes out where it's supposed to, and these guys are going to the left and right. Now these push rods are the kind you got to put the heat shrink on. I don't know if you can see that or not, but basically all it is a piano wire, and they cut a little Z-bend out for you. You're supposed to use some CA to glue the Z-bend onto the push rod, and then with some heat shrink, which is supplied with the kit, you just kind of put it over the part where you glued it, and that should hold it. Now when you're doing these kind of hinges, you need to put the control horns in last. Run the push rods first to wherever you need them to go. Put the control horn onto the Z-bend of the push rod. Once that's on the Z-bend, then you put the control horn into either the elevator or the rudder. If you put the control horn on, glue it in first before you attach the Z-bend, there's no way to run the push rods through. The only way you'd have to do it is, you can do it the exact same way, but when you try to heat it up, you're gonna melt the styrofoam. So install push rods, put the control horn on the Z-bend, and then put the control horn into the control surface, and then you can do all your adjusting on the servo to make it shorter, longer, whatever. In this case, the servo is exposed, so that'll be very easy to do. So do it that way and you can't go wrong. Okay, after a little tinkering around with things, I decided to get rid of these, get rid of the original foam control surfaces, elevator and rudder, and I actually just cut out a piece of balsa, a thin sheet of balsa. It's looks like it's about the same diameter or the same thickness. Because before, when I was operating the elevator, when I pushed, when the elevator was going this way, as if it was flying inverted, the entire control surface was all warped, and I wanted a little bit more strength on that, so I just cut out a piece of ply. And the rudder, it was just kind of falling off of the actual stabilizer, so I just made this one out of wood as well. And I'm running the rudder push rod outside of this boom. Originally we were going to run it inside the boom, that's why I cut out all those little slits, but we're actually going to run it outside because there's very, very little stress on this, and maybe tack it down with a little push rod, the actual sleeve for the push rod, and then mount it to the servos on the outside. So this is actually working a lot better. The elevator can go all the way negative and all the way positive, and I made sure I cut out the bottom of the rudder to allow for it to go maximum up, so I can do maybe a little bit better aerobatics or whatever, but it's nice to always have maximum range on my throws. And if it's too much, I can always turn Expo on or turn down the throw of the servo. Alright guys, I got it all put together. Got the tail section installed onto the boom, and all the push rods ran to the servos. I didn't come to the servos yet. This little part back here is just a little piece of tube from an old push rod I had. I just cut it off to use it as a guide for my rudder. So the rudder push rod and the elevator push rod are very smooth. There's no binding or anything. It's nice and smooth, so it'll be easy on the servos. I stuck, this came in half and I glued it all together, and as you can see, I stuck my receiver in the cockpit, and I'm just going to put the canopy on there, and it'll look pretty nice. And underneath, all you got is the battery hookup. It did come with like a little door, I guess, that goes to cover this up. You just got to find out a way to keep it there. Most people will probably use a piece of tape, but I don't like using tape to hold anything on. So I'll engineer a way to keep that on and make it look nice. I installed the little blue skid and the nose cone. Nose cone was just a little sticker, you stick it on there. And ran all my wires up here. Next thing I'm going to do is install the servo arms and attach the push rods to the servo arms. And last thing I'll do will be to put the wing on in the canopy. I'll charge the battery and we'll go fly it. I did put a little glue around all the seams, just a little bit, because if this thing crashes, you know, it's probably not going to break, but there's enough glue to hold it together. And I did put a little bit more glue on the motor, and I put some double-sided sticky tape for the receiver. And as soon as all this glue dries and everything's ready to go, we'll put the rest of it together. Okay, here's the finished product. Everything's on and straight. Servos do kind of stick out a little bit, but the advantage is when I did put this all together, the servos are a bit off, and I'm so glad they're on the outside because I can adjust them. Sticking out's not going to affect the flying characteristics, but yeah, so I put the receiver inside the cockpit. It's a little park flyer receiver. It might have fit inside, but I want to have access to all this stuff, because once you sandwich this plane together, there's no taking it apart. So I'm charging up the battery right now. We'll go fly it. Okay, I have a trick on the battery. A lot of you guys out there have these smart chargers, and they come with a bunch of adapters. This one is very common. It's for like the real small 2, maybe 3 cell batteries. And the battery that this comes with has little tabs on the side. You can't see it because it's really blurry, but it has little tabs on the side, on the left and right side of the actual plug you plug into your ESC. All you need to do is actually just trim the sides so that those little ears are actually, you can just cut them off so it's flush, and it'll actually fit in here. So you plug that into the main plug, obviously, and then your balance plug goes into your charger. And make sure you set it for you know, whatever, 2 cell at 0.2 amps is what I charge it at. So that's it. Oh, make sure when you plug this into your plane, those little tabs aren't there anymore. So make sure you get the polarities correct. The red goes to red and the black goes to black. Otherwise something bad's gonna happen. Alright? Okay, so we just got back from the flying field. Flew these. Me and a buddy, we bought the same plane, built them differently, and flew them. I brought my camera to the flying field but forgot the memory card, so there's no actual footage of us flying it. But you can look at Tony fly his on NitroPlanes.com under the cushat page. Anyways, plane flies good. I wouldn't recommend flying it more than half throttle. We did, and just to see how fast it went, and then while making a turn at probably 80% or so, the wings folded. So you can't make, I'm assuming you can't roll, and you can't make hard turns, hard sharp turns with these, or the wings will fold. So we went ahead and put some tape on the bottom to reinforce them, and that took care of the problem with the wing folding. We haven't exceeded more than 50% throttle since we did that. Maybe putting some more tape on the bottom from fuse to the end of the wingtip will definitely strengthen that up, so do that before you fly it. Other than that, flies good. It's very responsive. We flew at a baseball diamond, no big deal. Lands nice. Flies good. Not. I was gonna try to fly it inverted, but I didn't want the wings to fold when I pulled out of it. So after we did these modifications, I'll do a little bit more, and then maybe I'll get a video of it flying for you guys. I did notice it flew a little tail heavy, so I put a bolt, it's like a little screw, I just screwed it into the nose, and it seemed to take care of that problem. The other guy did install his servos inside the plane, and he had a little bit of problems with those. Just make sure if you do put them inside the plane, you secure them with glue, or something like that. Double-sided tape might not work as well after a while, and since you can't access the inside of this, you got to do it right the first time. So that's my review, and for $40, go get one.